Hi, everybody, and welcome to Alex Erm's Clips. All right, guys, let me tell you how it all started. Yesterday, I met up with my wife. We drove separately since she was coming from work. No big deal, right? Everything seemed fine. As the meeting was wrapping up, she mentioned that her friend was dropping off a rental car and needed a ride home. She asked if that was cool with me, and of course, I said yes. Her friend lives nearby, and I've known her for years, so I didn't think much of it. After the meeting, I got home and tried to reach her, but no response. 3 hours went by, no texts, no calls. By the time an hour and a half had passed, I was getting anxious, so I texted her friend just to check if everything was okay. Her friend responded, but what she said didn't sit right with me. She said she hadn't even seen my wife that night. Wait, what? That made no sense. My wife had just told me she was with her. So I'm sitting there, confused, thinking, what's going on? When my wife finally walked in, she apologized for being late, saying she'd hung out with her friend for a while before heading home. I nodded, trying to play it cool. But then, just a few minutes later, her friend texted me back and straight up said she hadn't met up with my wife at all that night. I asked my wife about it, and her response was sketchy. She acted like she had no control over what her friend said and then went outside to make a call. Something just didn't feel right. I've never been the kind of guy to snoop, but at that moment, I felt like I had to know. So, yeah, I checked her phone records, and man, I don't regret it. It turns out she had called her friend immediately after she stepped outside. I also noticed an hour-long call to a number I didn't recognize right before she went to the venue. That's when my gut told me something was definitely wrong. I tried to stay calm and asked her about the rental car place and other details, but her answers, though quick, just didn't sit right. Still, I thought maybe I was overreacting and needed to sleep on it. This morning, I decided to bring it up again. I asked her to show me the texts from her friend about the ride, and I promised I'd apologize if I was wrong. She refused. Then, I asked her about the call she was on when I caught up with her on the way to the venue. She claimed it was her friend, the same friend who had already told me they didn't meet up. That was when I knew for sure she was lying. So I told her I'd seen the phone records and knew she wasn't being honest. Her story changed. Now, she said she had to meet a coworker named Michael to discuss work-related stuff. When I asked why they couldn't just talk on the phone, she said she had to show him some techniques in person. Michael, huh? At this point, my alarm bells were blaring. We've never lied to each other before, so this felt like a punch to the gut. I asked her again if she was having an affair or if she even wanted to be with me anymore. Instead of answering, she started listing all these things she thought were wrong with me. How I work too much. Don't spend enough time with her. Don't listen. It was all stuff she'd never mentioned before, and now it was coming out of nowhere. After about 30 minutes of back and forth, she finally let me see her messages with Michael. And man, they were exactly what I feared. Super sexual and filled with conversations about me, about how she wanted to be with him, how they were practically in love. Turns out, this Michael guy is a coworker she's only known for a month and a half. He's also way older, like 15 or 20 years older, and divorced with kids. I've been the one financially supporting her while she got back on her feet, working extra so she wouldn't have to take on a second job. We own a house together with our 3 dogs and a horse. And now, I'm standing here realizing she's been betraying me with this guy the whole time. Sorry for the long story, but it's been a lot to process. I was completely blindsided. We were supposed to get married in 4 months, and now everything had fallen apart. My head was spinning, and I didn't know what to do next. Any advice would be helpful at this point. Update. Later that night, I finally managed to sit down with her to talk about what happened. She walked in and, without hesitation, began blaming me for everything. Can you believe that? She said the cheating and lying were because I didn't communicate well enough or listen to her. According to her, she wouldn't have started talking to this other guy if I'd been more attentive. She even claimed that I spent too much time working and not enough time with her. I tried to explain why I was working those extra hours. It was all for her, to support us financially while she was going through a rough patch. I didn't want her to have to get a part-time job, so I took on more responsibility. But then she hit me with, I would have rather just gotten the part-time job. That didn't make any sense to me. I was working my butt off so she wouldn't have to do that, and now she's saying she would have preferred it? She kept downplaying the whole thing, saying it was just a fling that lasted a week, and that they'd only made out once. Once, she said, as if that made it any better. When I brought up the texts I found, the ones where she was talking trash about me and having sexual conversations with him, she dodged the subject entirely. There was no real response, just deflection after deflection. That's when I laid it out for her. I told her that her actions, not mine, had brought us here. I couldn't trust her anymore, and it didn't matter how much she tried to justify it by blaming me. If she had issues with me or felt neglected, she should have talked to me instead of turning to someone else. By the end of the conversation, things cooled down a bit. We agreed to figure out the logistics of the house we owned together and our 3 dogs. The decision came down to 2 options. I could buy her out and stay, or we could sell the house and both move on to new places. As for the dogs, she'd take one, and I'd keep the other 2. And of course, she'd be taking the horse and boarding it at a barn. That's how we left it that night. I'm still not sure what to do about the house. Financially, I can afford it on my own, but it's nearly 3,000 square feet and sits on 5 acres of land we only bought for her horse. Now that she's taking the horse, I don't know if it makes sense to keep the property. Update. 3 days in, and we sat down again. This time, we had a 3-hour conversation about everything. Our relationship, where things went wrong, and how we ended up here. It started the same way, her telling me all the things I'd done wrong. She pointed to the usual suspects: lack of communication, spending too much time working, and always being on my phone. Honestly, I can't disagree with all of it. I've always been hustling, trying to provide for us. I run an e-commerce business on the side, and it's a 24/7 operation. Customers can reach out at any time, and deals can happen in the middle of the night. It's hard to step away from it. I know I could have done better about putting my phone down and leaving things for the next day. But the part that hit me hardest was that I had no idea she was unhappy with any of this. It wasn't like she ever told me she was feeling neglected. When I asked why she hadn't brought it up sooner, she said she was afraid I'd get upset. But how could I fix something I didn't even know was broken? I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, and I know I can come off as rude sometimes, even when I don't mean to. Like, just a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to help her with her finances. She's had some money troubles lately, so I sat down with her to figure out a budget. She mentioned that she owed me about $1,000 and would pay me back after her next paycheck. I corrected her, saying it was actually more than that, and we went through the transfers I'd made to our joint account. Turns out, it was over $5,000. My intention wasn't to embarrass her. I just wanted her to see how much I'd been contributing so we could plan better. But she didn't take it that way. She thought I was trying to humiliate her. I was just trying to help, but maybe my timing was off. I've been obsessing over money lately, but it was all for us. We still had a lot of wedding expenses to cover, and I was in overdrive, making sure we'd be financially okay. It frustrates me to no end that she keeps using this as an excuse, trying to justify what she did by pointing to my supposed flaws. Every time, she says something like, "I can't believe you'd throw away 7 years like this." And every time, I have to remind her that I'm not the one who threw it away. She did that with her actions. She's upset that I told people about the affair so quickly. She wanted to keep it between us, like we could somehow patch things up without anyone knowing. She also keeps repeating that she wouldn't have turned to someone else if I'd been a better listener, if I'd communicated more. I'm getting tired of hearing that excuse. I've pieced together the timeline of the affair, and from what I've seen in the texts, I actually believe I know the full extent of it. They started talking just 1 or 2 weeks before the infamous viaduct text. I don't know if they met up outside of work before that, but when they did meet, they went to a park to play basketball and chat. That's when things crossed the line and they ended up making out. I don't think it went further than that yet, but let's be real, it would have in no time. She insists that he's not her boyfriend, though. But last night, she took off, and I have no idea where she went. My guess? She's either with him or a girlfriend. Either way, it's not a great feeling. Living together right now is beyond awkward, but I'm hoping things will resolve soon. I do get the sense she wants to try to fix things, but honestly, I don't think that's possible. The main issue was a lack of communication that built up over time, and instead of talking to me, she acted out, and worse, lied to my face. She's been sneaky, talking behind my back, and that's something I don't think I can ever trust again. Of course, the easiest thing to do would be to stay together and pretend like none of this happened. But would I ever really be happy? Probably not. At least now, I can see the root cause of our problems, and that helps, if nothing else. It gives me clarity, and I can work on improving my own communication issues and see things from a different angle. Today, I made a big step. I went to the gym, and I'm planning to make that a routine. I've also started studying for my CFP designation again, something I'd put off for too long. I even took the week off work to focus on my mental health. I also spoke with her parents again, just to keep them in the loop. They live far away and are understandably worried. I reassured them that everything is calm and under control, at least on the surface. As for the house, I've been doing some research, looking at interest rates in the housing market. Honestly, I can't find anything comparable to what I have now for the mortgage I pay. Even finding a decent apartment would be a struggle with how high rents are these days. I think my best option is to buy out her share and let her find a place of her own. She seems agreeable for now. We'll get an appraiser out to assess the value and see if buying her out is something I can afford. I do have a question for everyone, though. Does any of this change your perspective on the situation? Am I handling things the right way? If not, what should I be doing differently? Update. It's been nearly a month since this whole mess began, and I think it's time for an update. The last few weeks have been busy, emotional, and to be honest, pretty eventful. I'm not going to lie, those first few days after the discovery were rough. I was a wreck, even humiliating myself by begging for her to come back. Yeah, I know, it's embarrassing to admit, but I guess it was part of the process of moving on. During that vulnerable time, I tried everything I could think of to make things right. I wanted to fix it all, even though she was the one who broke it. Nothing worked. And then I found out something that hit me like a ton of bricks. She said she needed to choose between me and him. Him. And she chose him. That was the wake-up call I needed. That's when I realized I'd let my self-worth crumble. I'd put her above everything, including my own happiness, and I needed to take a step back. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me and what I needed to do to move forward. It's tough, after 7 years of putting someone else's needs first, to suddenly shift your focus to yourself. But that's exactly what I've been doing. First, I moved all of our joint savings into my personal checking account. I calculated what she was owed, transferred half of the balance back into the joint account, and left it for her to take. Since this whole thing began, I've made working out part of my daily routine. Not only does it feel great to improve my appearance, but it's also helping me clear my mind and think straight. I've been doing things I'd never really done before, like shopping for clothes, getting a suit, and even booking a massage. I've also been reconnecting with friends and family, which I now realize were isolated from me throughout this relationship. It should have been a major red flag, but at the time, I just didn't see it. I was always so focused on taking care of her and the animals, I forgot to take care of myself. Now, I'm seeing a therapist weekly for the first time in my life, and it's been a huge help. Talking things through and making sense of my decisions is making a big difference. It's something I'll probably continue even after all this drama is behind me, just to keep improving myself. As for the bigger picture, I'm still living in the house with her. We're basically just coexisting at this point. She sleeps in the guest bedroom, and our only communication revolves around basic stuff like feeding the dogs. It's painfully clear to me now that she's a terrible person, but she still thinks all of this is my fault. The hypocrisy of accusing me of being a bad communicator and using that as an excuse for not communicating her feelings before cheating is unreal. I've given up trying to reason with her. It's pointless. I've kept the ball rolling with selling the house, though. I contacted an agent, had them come over, and I was pretty happy with the proposed sale price. Of course, she requested I get 2 more opinions, one from a friend of hers. So I did. I called, set up appointments, and met with all the agents, because that's how this relationship always was. It wasn't fair, but I'm still willing to do what needs to be done just to get out of here. In the end, we chose the first agent. The house went on the market, and there's already been a lot of interest, with an open house scheduled for next Saturday. She's going to take the horse and board it somewhere. Who knows where. We also talked about the dogs. She offered to take all 3 of them, to keep them together. They're a happy little pack, and I didn't want to break them up. Selfishly, it gives me the opportunity to start fresh, without being tied down by them. Something unexpected happened last week. I met someone new. We've been spending a lot of time together, and while I'm not putting any unrealistic expectations on it, I'm enjoying her company. She's been through a similar situation and has been a big help in getting me through this. Talking with her has been eye-opening. She's kind, thoughtful, independent. The total opposite of my ex. It's making me realize how narcissistic and manipulative my ex really was. Completely self-centered and dependent, she was nothing like the woman I should have been with. I guess I should have listened to the warnings from my family and friends a long time ago. Looking back, I see that I fell into a routine, a comfort zone. It was easy, nice house, lots of land, great animals. I didn't want to rock the boat, so I just let life happen. I wasn't really living, just existing in this convenient situation. But you don't realize that until you take a step back and reflect. Some might say I wasted time, but I'm trying to use this as a learning experience. I won't ignore red flags in the future, and I won't let myself fall into the trap of complacency. I'll maintain my relationships with friends and family, and I'll make sure I live a life that makes me happy, not just comfortable. I want to end this by giving a huge shout out to everyone who commented on my original post. I posted on Reddit because, honestly, I was lost. I had no idea what to do, and every single person who took the time to help a stranger, you're amazing. I read every comment, and they've all helped me get to where I am today. So, my opinion, guys, it's clear how much personal growth has taken place over the course of these months. After sharing the house with his ex until mid-May and dealing with the pain of watching her leave with 2 of their 3 dogs, he focused heavily on self-improvement. He hit the gym daily, devoted himself to his side hustle, and saved enough to buy a new home, a huge step toward reclaiming his independence and future. The difficulty of selling the old house and purchasing a new one didn't deter him. His determination to build a better life for himself and his remaining dog speaks volumes. Moving into his new home marked a fresh chapter, offering a needed escape from the memories that haunted him in his previous house. The emotional healing from this experience seems to be ongoing. While he admits to thinking about his ex often, both good and bad memories, his therapist has helped him come to terms with the fact that he'll likely never receive an apology from her. Her refusal to take responsibility for her actions has been one of the hardest aspects to accept, but he's learning to move past it. His relationship with his new girlfriend has also been a source of healing and growth. Her good communication and empathy have helped him become a better communicator and improve his emotional intelligence. Despite the hardship of his breakup, he now feels fortunate for the lessons it has taught him, especially the realization that he was about to marry someone who wasn't right for him. This chapter of his life has come to an end, but it's evident that he's gained a deep understanding of his own needs and desires and is focused on continuing to work on himself. His journey serves as a reminder that even in the darkest moments, it's possible to come out stronger, more self-aware, and prepared for a better future. So, dear friends, if you're enjoying these stories, please give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more juicy relationship tales. Thanks for your support.